So the next topic that we wanted to go over with you would be the landlord's right to enter the rental property. um, does that vary from state to state, and as far as the different terms or maybe the time frames or anything like that?
It really does. Some states have very specific laws around this, and then there's other states, like I know that Idaho, for example, doesn't have any laws addressing landlord entry specifically. This is another place where landlords should go really educate themselves
Hmm.
on what their state requires, what the laws in their state requires them to do in specific situations. Generally, is the rule, but again, we need to go find out what your specific state requires. And then beyond that, there's situations where notice is required, and then there are some situations where notice might not be required, but those are very rare, like emergencies where there's water pouring down to the unit below through the ceiling, or there's smoke coming out of the unit. And in those like real emergency situations, notice might not be required at all. But in all other situations, the landlord does need to know what the rules are and how they apply.
And typically, I know you mentioned written. That applies to would it apply to an email notification if the landlord were to send an email if that was their typical mode of communication?
Well, this is a place where in your lease, I believe you can specify
Hmm.
what written notice is. So is it going to be a notice in writing under the door? Is it going to be an email? Is it going to be posted somewhere? But yes, in writing somehow where the tenant has an expectation to receive things and will see that.
Okay. So the next logical question would the follow up to that, because I think some landlords have dealt with this too, would be,
Mhm.
can the tenant refuse entry?
It's always, again, great to work with your tenant cooperatively.
Hmm.
And if a tenant has a reasonable uh, basis for refusing entry, uh, the landlord should work with them. Maybe it's because this day doesn't work, or there's some days that don't work and some days that do. So work with your tenant to try and meet in a place that works for everyone as far as when you need to come in. Um, Tenants can refuse entry at some point if if their refusal is unreasonable. Then the landlord might want to take legal action. They can sue the tenant for damages or loss if if they've incurred damage or loss that's caused by the tenant's failure to cooperate with them. They can pursue a court order to allow them to access the unit, allow them access to the unit, but they can't force, or they should not force entry on the tenant, because that then creates a lot of problems
Sure.
potentially for the landlord. So you have to go through these steps of trying to get the tenant to cooperate, give notice, knock on the door,
Right.
expect them to comply. But if they don't, the answer is never to force entry or push things beyond that.